All right, so listen to this. You guys have sent in a ton of stuff about Social Security payments specifically for Americans living abroad, and things seem to be a bit messy, especially in places like the Philippines and all over Asia, really.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a real-life bureaucratic thriller with YouTube videos and blog posts, even some heated Facebook exchanges.
Wow.
Let's dive in and try to figure out what exactly is going on, why it should matter to you listening right now, and what we can all learn from these experiences.
Yeah, what really stands out to me is how all these stories from a YouTube video to Facebook comments really show the human side of what could easily just be seen as some abstract policy issue.
It's true. We're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about people's lives being seriously disrupted.
Yeah.
All of our sources, Uncle Craig, a YouTuber living in Thailand, and an expat blogger based in the Philippines, are saying that Social Security payments for February 2025 have been widely suspended.
And to make matters worse, nobody from the government is really communicating, which is only adding to the confusion and anxiety.
That's right. Uncle Craig actually shows his online Social Security account statement in his video, and right next to the February payment, it just says suspended in big red letters.
Oh, wow.
No explanation, no nothing. He also mentions seeing a bunch of posts from other expats in the same boat on those Social Security Facebook groups.
I bet.
The blogger is even more direct, saying, I am sure American expats will die because of the current situation.
That's a scary thought.
It is.
Yeah.
And it really makes you realize how much these folks rely on these payments for like the most basic things like medicine and healthcare.
It is a powerful statement for sure. And it really raises some serious questions about, are government agencies doing enough to provide clear and timely information, especially when people's well-being is at stake?
So let's try to untangle this bureaucratic web that both our sources are describing when it comes to actually getting these payments. They both talk about the Federal Benefits Unit, or FBU, in Manila as the main point of contact. And we're not just talking about the Philippines. This is for a massive region. Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, and just getting in touch with this FBU seems like pulling teeth. The blogger shared a screenshot of an automated email reply saying responses can take 10 to 15 business days.
Oh my gosh.
And if you try calling, well, their phone lines are only open for a tiny 3-hour window 2 days a week.
That's crazy.
Imagine the frustration of trying to reach someone when your livelihood is literally on hold.
Almost like something out of Kafka.
Totally. Uncle Craig actually recorded himself calling the FBU multiple times in his video, and you can hear him getting disconnected over and over.
Oh, no.
The blogger even tried reaching out to the U.S. Embassy in Manila through Facebook, only to be told they don't handle Social Security inquiries at all.
It sounds like they're getting the runaround left and right with no clear direction on who can actually help.
Right. It's incredibly frustrating. And on top of that, both sources describe this whole process as stuck in like the Stone Age.
Yeah.
They rely heavily on snail mail, which causes huge delays, especially since these folks are so far from the U.S.
It's hard to believe they still rely so much on physical mail.
The blogger mentioned getting a renewal notice 10 years ago that took over 3 months to arrive from the U.S.
You're kidding.
It's mind-boggling. In this day and age, you'd think there'd be a more efficient system. I mean, waiting months for crucial documents to arrive by mail when you need those funds to live.
It really shows how outdated technology and procedures can create real hardship for people.
Okay, so let's talk about one of the main things both sources keep mentioning: forms, and more forms.
It seems like there's a requirement to submit certain forms to continue receiving payments.
But here's where things get even more confusing. Uncle Craig insists he never received any such forms, and lots of people in those Facebook groups are saying the same thing. But the blogger has been diligently sending these forms in for years, and their payments still got suspended.
So it's a lose-lose situation. Either you don't get the forms and your payments are suspended, or you do everything by the book and they still get suspended.
Exactly. And to add insult to injury, there's no easy way to submit these forms online. It's all about paper forms and physical mail.
It makes you wonder, is this process this confusing on purpose? Or is it just a case of colossal inefficiency?
Either way, the impact on these retirees is undeniable.
For sure.
And it's not just inconvenience. This is about people being able to afford basic necessities. Uncle Craig tells this story about elderly retirees in Thailand who rely on Social Security to pay for caregivers.
So without those payments, their situation becomes really dangerous.
Imagine the stress of suddenly losing your expected income, especially when you're living in a foreign country, potentially dealing with language barriers and a whole different culture.
It's a recipe for disaster, especially for seniors who might have limited options for recourse.
And just to make things worse, there's another wrench thrown in the mix: the Social Security Fairness Act.
This act was supposed to be a good thing, right?
Right.
Correcting unfair deductions for retirees who also happen to have government pensions.
You would think.
Hmm.
But it seems to be stuck in implementation limbo, adding another layer of complexity to an already messy situation.
So a lot of retirees, including Uncle Craig, were expecting to finally get their full Social Security benefit starting in February because of this act. But now it seems like that's on hold indefinitely.
It really makes you question if the Social Security Administration is even communicating these changes properly, or if they even understand what's going on themselves.
This whole thing really shows the disconnect between what a law says and what actually happens in people's lives.
And the human cost of those delays can be devastating. It's like the system is fighting against them every step of the way. And it really makes you think about the bigger picture, you know?
Yeah, this isn't just about Social Security payments. It's about relying on any government system when you're living in another country. What happens if those systems fail? What can you even do?
That's a scary thought. And what about the long-term consequences?
Well, one thing's for sure, these kind of experiences just make people lose trust in those institutions. If you can't depend on something as basic as your retirement income, what can you depend on?
It makes you wonder if there are like deeper problems within the entire Social Security Administration. You know, like are these just isolated cases? Or is there something fundamentally wrong with how the system is designed?
That's the big question. It seems like there's a huge gap between what the SSA claims to do, provide a safety net for retirees, and what's actually happening to people, especially those living abroad.
Yeah, it's almost like they're getting penalized for retiring outside the U.S.
It really shows we need people fighting to make sure these systems actually help the people they're supposed to protect.
So what can we learn from all of this? Even if we're not planning to retire in Southeast Asia anytime soon, there must be something we can take away from this.
For sure. I think it's a wake-up call for all of us to be more proactive about our finances. Don't just assume everything's okay with your Social Security.
So like check our statements more often.
Exactly. Check your statements online and any paper mail you get. Make sure everything's accurate and up to date and, make sure you know what resources are available. The Social Security Administration website has a lot of info, and you can also find the contact information for your local federal benefits unit.
That's a good point. It's like that saying, knowledge is power. The more you know about the system, the better you'll be able to handle it.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help. If you run into any problems or delays, don't give up. Document everything. Sometimes being assertive can really help.
To be your own advocate.
Right. You have to look out for yourself because it's clear the system won't always do it for you.
It's interesting that both Uncle Craig and the blogger found support and information from other expats in online forums and Facebook groups.
Yeah, those platforms can be so helpful for connecting with people going through the same thing and sharing advice and resources.
It's a reminder that you're not alone when dealing with these complicated systems. There's strength in numbers, and working together can really make a difference. Let's zoom out for a second and think about the bigger implications.
Yeah, the problems these U.S. retirees are facing raise big questions about citizenship and globalization and the role of government. As more and more people choose to live and work all over the world, how do we make sure their rights are protected and they can access essential services?
It's a complicated issue for sure. It makes you wonder if the systems we have now can actually handle a globalized world.
That's a conversation we need to have on a much larger scale. This deep dive is just a glimpse into a much bigger problem, and it shows the real impact of policy decisions. We need to advocate for systems that are fair, efficient, and truly serve the needs of all citizens no matter where they live.
And on a more personal level, it's a cautionary tale about relying only on government safety nets.
It makes us think about taking charge of our own financial futures and looking at different ways to secure our well-being. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say.
So diversification is key.
Exactly. And I think it's more than just finances. It's about building a life that can handle unexpected challenges.
Like a strong social network, a sense of community, having different skills.
Yeah.
Those can be just as valuable as a big retirement fund.
Right. It's about being adaptable and resourceful and having the confidence to face whatever life throws at you.
It really gets you thinking, this whole thing. It's a reminder that we can't just assume these systems will always work like they should.
Yeah, it's a call to action, for sure. Not just for the people directly affected by this, but for everyone.
Okay.
We need to be informed and engaged and ready to stand up for ourselves and for a better system.
Okay, so we've seen some pretty serious issues with how Social Security works for Americans living abroad. What can we actually do about it? What are some concrete steps we can take?
Well, first things first, if this is affecting you, directly reach out to your elected officials. Tell them what you're going through and demand they do something about it. These bureaucratic nightmares won't fix themselves.
Right? It's easy to feel powerless in these situations. But our elected officials worked for us. They need to hear about these problems if they're going to be able to fix them.
Exactly. And there's power in numbers. If enough people speak up, they can't ignore it. Share your story, connect with others who are dealing with the same things, and join forces to push for change.
That's where those online forums and support groups can be really helpful, right?
Absolutely. They can provide a sense of community and a shared goal. And they can be a really powerful platform for getting organized and getting your message out there.
Besides contacting our representatives, is there anything else we can do?
Of course. This deep dive has shown how important it is to be proactive and informed. Don't wait until you're in a crisis to start thinking about your financial security and your safety nets.
So what are some practical things people can do?
Well, like we talked about, check your Social Security statements regularly and make sure you understand all the rules and deadlines.
And if you're thinking about living abroad, especially during retirement, do your research and be aware of the potential challenges you might face.
Exactly. Don't just assume that things will work the same way they do in the U.S. Talk to other expats, find reliable information, and be ready to stand up for yourself.
Knowledge is power, but it's also about taking action.
You got it. Information without action doesn't mean anything. This deep dive is just the beginning. It's up to each of us to take what we've learned and use it to make a real difference in our own lives and in the world around us.
Well said. This has been a fascinating, if a little bit unsettling, look into the world of Social Security for U.S. expats. We've uncovered some serious problems, but we've also explored some possible solutions. And most importantly, we've emphasized how crucial it is to be informed and engaged. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.